Around us, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you, coming to you today in my mobile form. I just like it when it's like there it is. It's like literally a talking head, and it fits your phone so well. You see me in my headset. How are you? Welcome to another hot day that starts in California and spreads throughout the country. It's like triple digits where I am now, or will be at some point today, and it's going to be hot, hot, hot as it spreads from California to Texas to the East Coast. I hope you're warm, or I mean, I hope you're cool. I hope your AC is working because, as they constantly remind us, that you could die from this kind of heat, especially people who are houseless or the unhoused. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the thing is, I always, in my mind, I think about how cold it is in air conditioned climes, meaning, I'll go inside a public place and get the air conditioning and then go outside and the heat feels normal. But I'm so cheap, like I keep my AC, like my AC's off. I don't even run the AC. I just stay in the shade, wear less clothing. I think we might run the AC for an hour at night, maybe when it's really hot and it gets stuffy. But no, really, I mean, there's all these tactics you have to use. And one of the tactics, though, is going to a public space, like a mall or someplace like that, where they've got to pump up the AC if they want to make their customers comfortable. Anyway, the heat. It's hot. There's nothing you can do with the heat. So don't complain about it. Just say, I can handle it. I can. That's the best thing. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about the heat, except go to your congressman and say, hey, look, let's do something about climate change. That's what you can do about the heat. It's a reminder that you can go to your congressman, you can go to your politicians and say, let's do something about our carbon footprint. Let's do something about fossil fuels. Let's do something about look. The easiest thing you can do is you can go vegan. You know that, right? You go vegan, and it's probably the simplest, easiest thing you can do to make a statement about climate change and climate control. Really, it is. Just go vegan. Go be, I mean, there are times, and I'm not saying I'm not tempted by meat. I am tempted by meat. You see the food porn out there. I am tempted by meat, but I don't give in. I don't give into it. No reason to give into it. And now that I know about natural Ozempic, those of you who are into Ozempic and Wegovy, I saw a Wegovy commercial today. The things that you got to watch about Wegovy, pancreatic problems, gallbladder problems. I have had gallbladder problems. I know about gallbladder pain. I know that when it comes to pain for men who want to replicate the pain of childbirth, gallbladder pain is right up there. Right up there. I have had gallbladder pain, and it usually is when I've had too much fat. Too much fat, not in the head, but too much fat in my food, excess cheesiness, right? I don't eat cheese anymore. But the times when I did, because that was considered, well, it's, you can eat cheese, meaning like vegan cheese, full of oil. But to melt it and, you eat rich food, combine it with alcohol, oh my God, you're talking gallbladder attack. So Wegovy apparently triggers off gallbladder attack. So all the fine print that you don't read, they tell you in the ads, sometimes too quickly so you don't understand. But I heard that and I said, wow. Now, if you know, as I told you on this show, that Wegovy, what it does is it triggers off this GLP-1, Gulf 1, which is like the first bite. It should be a vegan bite. But if it's not, what this does is this hormone tells you that you are full and you'll stop eating. That's what Wegovy does. It says no more, no mas, and it costs you like $1,500 for a shot of Wegovy. Hey, you can call me for less than $1,500, and I'll tell you, you're full. Stop eating. But but the real reason why you shouldn't take Wegovy is because of all these side effects: pancreatic pain, gallbladder pain. My goodness, forget it. All right, on today's show, the news of the day, the Hunter Biden verdict. Did you really think? I thought maybe he would get off. I thought maybe when someone talked about the jury nullification idea, I thought, oh, maybe this would be a way that the jury says, this man should not be even prosecuted. And even conservatives were saying that. Conservatives weren't saying that because, well, were it not for the laptops and the actual document, usually these things are done on a computer form, and they would have found out that Hunter Biden had no prior record that he would have had the gun, and oh, someone says, "Is my mic plugged in?" Ah,
There it is. Oh, I had to fix my sound. Sorry, folks. For this first 10 minutes, I was railing on about Wegovy and gallbladder pain, and you may not have heard me as clearly. I apologize. So, where were we? So, a lot of people are saying, yeah, this case maybe it shouldn't have even been done. I mean, you look at the number of situations where every time there's a mass shooting and people say, well, we need to apply the gun laws or enforce the gun laws, and then they never do, right? And then all of a sudden here is a gun law being enforced, and it's the president's son. So this is the weaponization. You're seeing the weaponization of the gun laws. This is it, right? And the Republicans, they don't know what to do because they understand that, they're weaponizing this. But the most interesting response that I've heard from people on, among the commentators is CNN has this black guy, Shermichael, not Schmerkonish, Shermichael. Shermichael Singleton, who copped to the idea that he has a gun company, sells guns. And he says, those of us in the 2A category, he called it 2A. And I had to think, well, what is he talking about? The 2A movement? This is the Second Amendment. They call it that's insider talk, right? He said, those of us in the 2A movement are wondering, why this is even happening, because all Hunter Biden has to do is go all the way to the Supreme Court. And there at the Supreme Court waiting is Justice Clarence Thomas, who is a 2A advocate, has ruled on a law which essentially protects the right of drug addicts to own a gun. If you can believe that. I mean, if Hunter Biden was an addict, I mean, they didn't have to prove directly that on the day he filled out that form, he was an addict. But apparently it was just around that time in general, right? So if that case goes before Clarence Thomas has ruled that drug addicts have a right to bear arms, because if they're drug addicts, consider the kind of people they deal with, and they have to protect themselves. They have a real right to protect themselves compared to anyone else out there. So Shermichael's opinion is that Hunter Biden should take this case all the way to the Supreme Court and then have Clarence Thomas save him by ruling against this case and throwing it out, showing how magnanimous Clarence Thomas can really be, even though he still is an unethical Supreme Court justice who should recuse himself and even step down. But that was an interesting float that I heard today, that, hey, this case is going to be appealed. We don't know how much jail time Hunter Biden's going to get, but because he is a first offender, chances are he'll get the minimum sentence, if any at all. He could get probation because people will understand and realize this case should never have come up. Of course, if Hunter Biden takes the Shermichael appeal route, that could be interesting too, to see the case that was cited was Clarence Thomas, who wrote the opinion that drug addicts have a right to bear arms. This is apparently common in the 2A movement, the Insiders Gun Club, which I have to admit I'm kind of fascinated by. I'm into the Second Amendment now because I have discovered my love of guns. Massage guns. I love massage guns. Oh my God, my back pain has gone away. The regular guns I'm not a big fan of, but massage guns, I love a good massage gun. I had a lesbian friend who showed me the massage gun, and she said for therapeutic use. It wasn't sexual at all. Therapeutic use. Although when I get it and I use it, I feel like I have the power of 1,000 Thai masseuses in my hands. That's the power of my massage gun. Anyway, we'll see if that happens. Hunter Biden should be sentenced on in a few months. They haven't decided, but it was interesting to see the First Lady, Jill Biden, with her sunglasses on, and Hunter Biden walking out with his wife, and he was in good spirits. The president has already said how he feels about this, right? The president has already said he's going to abide by the law. And this is key. This is key because if we're in this compare and contrast election, we're going to be comparing and contrasting, Biden and CFDT 34. My phrase for convicted felon Donald Trump. 34 guilty verdicts. And every comparison is going to be, a point for, one or the other based on how you feel. And on this score, man, I mean, Joe Biden is, he's the clear winner in New York at the New York trial and the verdicts. What was Trump? CFDT 34 was witch hunt, rigged. The judge, he's a Democrat. Daughter's a fundraiser. This is it. They're out to get me. Witch hunt, rigged. All that stuff, all that nonsense. He didn't say I'm upholding the rule of law. I'll abide. Nothing. Witch hunt, rigged. That's Trump. What's Joe Biden? Going in, he told ABC, he said, look, I respect the rule of law. I respect the opinion of the jury. And when asked if he would pardon his son, he said, no. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. He didn't hesitate. That is a man who puts country over self. That is someone who is worthy to be president of the United States. Trump, worthy of being president of the United States? Would he pardon Don Jr. or Eric? Let's see, who is likely to have committed some kind of felony and be convicted? Probably Eric is dumb, but Don is more mischievous. So I think he would probably pardon Don Jr. In a second, he'd pardon Ivanka. But if you think that was fast, Trump pardoning his kids, look how fast he pardoned Flynn, all his cronies. All his cronies get pardoned just like that. I mean, he might have to serve time. I mean, Peter Navarro serving time. But at some point he's going to get pardoned by Trump. Oh, wait a minute. Only if Trump were elected again, which is why Peter Navarro is from jail. Big time Trump supporter. Peter Navarro, a Harvard graduate. You got to point that out. Harvard graduates include guys like the Unabomber, Peter Navarro. A wide range in that spectrum. Anyway, so I noticed that Joe Biden the report is that he went to Delaware to be with his family as they heal. It's important. But one thing I noted, he did speak before the Moms Demand Action, is that the name? Every town for gun safety. Those guys. I like them. Anti-gun advocates. Big gun meeting, gun assembly in Washington, D.C. And there was Biden. Did he once mention Hunter Biden? No mention at all. This is after the verdict. No mention at all. This is a guy who puts country over self and puts love of democracy over self. Can you imagine? I mean, it's your son. It's related to gun. You don't mention. I would have mentioned it because I'm not president, but he's president. He's playing it politically, but I think he's also showing the kind of person he is. Because here's another thing that happened during that meeting. It was interrupted by a pro-Gaza group. And not necessarily pro-Hamas, just, calling for a ceasefire, calling for an end to the war. And while the gun advocates tried to shout down the protester, Biden, you got to hand it to Biden. Biden is not a divider. Biden brings people together. And he said to the gun advocates, hey, look, she has a point, talking about the protester. Innocent children have died. She has a point, and he calmed down that group. I mean, they were out to get the protester, these anti-violence, anti-gun folks. They went into a cheer of 4 more years. Not 4 more years of war, but 4 more years of Biden. And Biden was cool. I mean, he wasn't like some addled, 90-year-old guy. He's not 90. He's in his 80s. 82, right? He was totally in control. Do what he was doing. He wasn't flustered. You got to hand it to Biden. He can bring the country together. He can find common ground. That's why when you do a comparison between Trump and Biden and all these things where comparisons are apt, you say, wow, Trump is this way, but Biden is this way. Trump is this way, but Biden is this way. And you say to yourself, why is there any question? Well, the question about Biden and Trump, this is interesting. 538 did their first 2024 forecast. They say it's a toss-up. It is so close that, and I mentioned this in my column on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, that basically we have people who really like Trump and people who really like Biden. And that's like maybe 80% of the electorate. So you got 40 and 40, 80%. And you're fighting for the 20 out there. And it might even be fewer than 20 because some of those will split off and go with independents. So it may even be like 15, or 10. That's who you're fighting for if you are Trump or Biden. But those are the voters who are going to matter. That 10%. Some of them are independent. Some of them are moderate Democrats. Some of them are moderate Republicans. But they're 10 in the middle. Who wins those 10? And in a straight up comparison, like Hunter Biden case, which is kind of bogus because Hunter Biden is not the president. But people will say, hey, Donald Trump was convicted, but so was Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is not the president. But how did Trump or Biden respond to, the whole process? And you see Trump calling the whole thing rigged, a witch hunt. And you see Biden saying, I'll abide. I respect the rule of law. I respect the jury. I will not pardon my son. You see that and you say, who's the good guy? Who's the good guy? Who is worthy of the title President of the United States? So 538 calls it a toss-up, essentially. And he says, based on 538, that's owned by ABC News, said, based on a combination of polls which slightly favor President Trump at this stage, former President Trump, says that in most scenarios, 538's model expects Biden to win the popular vote. But in the first iteration of their forecast, Biden wins 53 of 100 simulations. That means Trump wins 47 out of 100. That's really close. Really close. And so, if you are still in that 10% in the middle, think about these moments, like the Hunter Biden verdict. Think about these moments like the Trump verdict. See how each man reacts, how each candidate reacts, who is worthy. And here's the other thing that's, we look at the most important polls, since the Trump 34 convictions, and most of them say it's going to take a while for this to sink in. But it really only shows that Joe Biden got a little nudge, just a little nudge, not a great nudge, a little nudge. So, yeah, it's going to be very close. And so, of course, the battleground states, we know what the battleground states are: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So those are the 7 states. Nevada, lots of Filipinos, lots of Asians there. Arizona, not so many. Arizona, a weird state. No water. They've got more water than Filipinos in Asia, in Arizona. Georgia, always critical state. North Carolina. Pennsylvania should be closer to Biden, but unclear. Michigan, of course, and of course, Wisconsin. So those are the 7 states to look for. That sliver, that 10%, who are the persuadables going forward. That's what you should be looking for. So, I was surprised that the jury came back so soon. Interesting, too, that we heard from jurors. They were anonymous, but I saw some who talked to CNN. Some said that it was like split 6-6 yesterday, but by today it was like 11-1 to convict. A lot of it is because of the jury instructions. And finally, it's almost like, did you run a red light? Oh, yeah, I did. But, I got an explanation. Well, forget the explanation. You're guilty. I mean, that's sort of the hard reality. I mean, the only time I've come across the law is like, hey, did you go against a red light or did you stop at the stop sign in a traffic court, right? And the fact is, you did or you didn't, right? And sometimes it's your word against the word of the cop who's there to testify against you. Oh, did you stop at the stop sign? Of course I did. And he says you didn't. And the judge accepts the cop's word. So I don't know what's going to happen, but interesting to see the jurors come back. They quickly came back and said, yeah, okay, he's guilty. And let's see what happens now. I was holding out for a jury nullification idea because this is Biden country. Maybe there's some people who love the Bidens so much that, oh no, let's leave the Bidens alone. They've done so much for us, but they convicted him. So we'll see. And I'll also be looking at conservatives like the 2A, the Second Amendment conservatives, who say things like, you know, why not to challenge it? It's an irony. It's an irony, but goes to the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas, who's ruled in favor of drug addicts bearing arms, Second Amendment rights. I mean, because who's got to protect themselves? Drug addicts. You know, considering their scenarios. I'm telling you, if it goes to the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas could throw it out. Of course, he could play coy and say, yeah, it's Biden. Screw that, right? We'll see. The other thing, all right, that's what I call the Shermichael irony. We talked about the Biden speech, the Alito recording. That story broke today. And it's not so much what Alito said, although Alito clearly is the recordings that we saw that were released and that were picked up by the news media. It was recorded by an activist at a Supreme Court gathering. And Alito pretty much said, yeah, I don't see where there's going to be much compromise between, you know, those who are pro-religious and those who are anti. You know, it's just hard to come up with a compromise. This is a guy who's going to be ruling on issues where religious freedom is going to be an issue. And he says there's no compromise. I guess he's just feeling comfortable now that he can just openly and publicly state how theocratic he really is. But of course, leave it to his wife to go 10 steps further than Alito, because his wife said she'd like to see, she's a practicing Catholic and she's also German. So she was saying, I'm German, like she was going to go after those who would cross her. But she said, I want a flag. She said, I want a flag with the burning soul of Jesus on the flag. That's the kind of flag we need. You know, forget about upside down flags. She wanted the burning soul of Christ. These are zealots. These are the kind of people who do not belong. Well, Alito married her. She doesn't have power, but she has power in the sense that she controls Samuel Alito, who has, after years of being nothing, a nobody, has now, it's almost his court. Where's Judge Roberts in all this? It's like Alito's court. Anyway, that's the latest on the Supreme Court. That, you know, the person who recorded the interviews, I mean, it was legal. I don't know if it was secretly recorded. I didn't get that detail. But apparently she didn't get the permission because there's a one-way permission law in D.C., according to this, to the activist who recorded it. She didn't need it. But she said in her defense that if we don't have these recordings, we can't rely on the mainstream media to get to a position where they can get to the truth. This is why undercover investigations are always, they're a gift. Because if you're in the media business, if you're a reporter like I've been for years, To get people to tell you the truth, how hard is that? It is so hard because people will lie. They will lie. They will not tell, or they will evade, or they will not answer. You got to get people in a position, maybe after a few drinks, maybe after you've established trust, who will tell you the truth, because they will not tell you the truth when you just ask them a simple question. So in some ways, you got to go undercover, because why this is news is because Samuel Alito and his wife would never say this in public. They would never say this openly to anyone, to the New York Times or the Washington Post, and no one like that. CNN, MSNBC. But here's a woman who poses. She posed as a Catholic activist, a conservative Catholic activist. And so they felt, Alito and his wife felt comfortable. They start talking real, authentically, and we get the truth. That's why it's valuable. You go undercover when you can get the truth, because the truth is elusive and people are not forthcoming. Thank goodness for undercover reports, activists who will get at the truth. I want to talk about Caitlin Clark a little bit, because I did something that I wouldn't have done before. And I have said I followed the WNBA. I have. I mean, Candace Parker. I've always liked Candace Parker. It's not that I find them pretty. I mean, Candace Parker is she's an out lesbian, very attractive out lesbian. But I like their style of basketball. It's and the fact that they have some handsome and attractive athletes to boot. That's a good thing. They have some non-attractive athletes. But I've always watched Skylar Diggs, very attractive woman. I'm a cisgendered male. I mean, it's a fun sport to watch. I can see playing them, and I'd rather play them and have them cream me than play, like Shaquille O'Neal and then no contest, right? So I've always liked the WNBA, but nothing has made me like download the WNBA app and then buy the app so that I can get the schedule and watch games. But now you have to find the WNBA, because heretofore it's been very difficult to say, oh, where is the WNBA? I don't know where to find them. Sometimes they're on ESPN on nights when there's nothing on, and it's better than watching repeats of the cornhole tournament that ESPN would run sometimes, or like Escape Tag or whatever. No, the WNBA is better than that. But it was just hard to find. So finally, I plunked down my money. It wasn't that much, like $36 a year, which when you amortize it over a year, $3 a month to watch WNBA action, to watch highlights and repeats of the games. Bargain. I can find it. It's on my phone. And I like watching these players. I especially like the Las Vegas Aces. They've got some girls from women who played at St. Mary's in Stockton. They've got Kelsey Plum, right? She was married to a guy who just retired from the Raiders. He was with the Raiders. Derek Waller, I think his name is. I mean, they've got some great athletes, but I never would have done it if it weren't for the Caitlin Clark stuff. People are talking about Caitlin Clark. Is it race? Is it class? Is she, why is she not on the Olympic team? Why is she getting punked on the court? And I just felt like, here's the Caitlin Clark factor. I punked down my money. A lot of people are, because they want to see what she does, how she's doing it, how the league is responding. And frankly, I can sense a little resentment from players who say, hey, it's racist because she's white. That's why people like her. But people didn't like the game before because it was, black women. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Or they're lesbians. I don't know if that's necessarily, I mean, it's true, but I don't think that's why people didn't like the sport. I think people didn't like it because they didn't market it as well. And they didn't have like the one big star to say, yeah, let me watch it. And, you got Caitlin Clark and the media's covering it. People are debating the race issue, the sex issue. Is it, I've always heard this idea that, lesbians flock to the WNBA. They love the game. Well, I mean, straight people do too. So, but now it's coming out. I think it's marketing. Now they're marketing it, and they got my money. The WNBA has my money. I wish them well. I look forward. They're in a Commissioner's Cup tournament now. All the teams, and no, I like to watch WNBA. I like to watch Caitlin Clark. I like to watch Sue Bird. I like to watch Diana Taurasi, the UConn girls, women. Excuse me. I like to watch the New York Liberty. They've got some good players. The LA Sparks have some great players out of Stanford. I think that's the reason why I like women's basketball, because I started watching UConn women. And when the UConn women played the Stanford women, I used to be a big Stanford women's basketball fan. So, but I never plunked down my hard-earned cash until Caitlin Clark became the catalyst. All right, one more story that I want to share with you today, and this is in Florida. Headline AP: a Florida law blocking treatment for transgender children is thrown out by a federal judge. Hallelujah. This is in Fort Lauderdale. A federal judge on Tuesday struck down a 2023 Florida law that blocked gender-affirming care for transgender minors and severely restricted such treatment for adults, calling the statute unconstitutional. Thank goodness. Senior Judge Robert Hinkle said the state went too far when it barred transgender minors from being prescribed puberty blockers and hormonal treatments with their parents' permission. Key: parents' permission. He also stopped the state from requiring that transgender adults only receive treatment from a doctor and not from a registered nurse or other qualified medical practitioner. And he barred a ban on online treatment. He barred a ban on online treatment for transgender adults. Because, I mean, what does that do? That just keeps transgender adults from getting the kind of treatment that they need because of cost or because of, you can't prevent access. Hinkle said transgender people are constitutionally entitled to the legitimate treatment they need, and quoting the late Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., compared those who oppose it to those who were once against equality for minorities and women. Hallelujah. Look, they're the latest in line when you talk about minorities who are being persecuted. Trans people are the latest. It's appropriate to have a quote from the late Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., because trans people, they're on the front lines. They're fighting for equality. It was once minorities, ethnic minorities, and women. Now it's these gender minorities, the trans women, trans men, trans people. And the more we recognize this, the better off we are. Hinkle wrote in his 105-page decision, some transgender opponents invoke religion to support their position. just as some once invoked religion to support their racism or misogyny. Transgender opponents are, of course, free to hold their beliefs, but they are not free to discriminate against transgender individuals just for being transgender. In time, discrimination against transgender individuals will diminish just as racism and misogyny have diminished. To paraphrase a civil rights advocate from an earlier time, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The civil rights advocate from an earlier time that the judge mentions is the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' office blasted Hinkle's ruling. Of course he would, issuing a statement calling it erroneous and vowing to appeal. Through their elected representatives, the people of Florida acted to protect children in the state, and the court was wrong to override their wishes. The statement said, as we've seen here in Florida, the United Kingdom, and across Europe, there is no quality evidence to support the chemical and physical mutilation of children. These procedures do permanent, life-altering damage to children, and history will look back on this fad in horror. What if it's not a fad? What if it's just people exerting their right? And their right is none of the state's business and none of these advocates' business. Those who sued the state, because this was a state law, celebrated the decision. Lucian Hamill, a transgender adult, issued a statement saying, quote, I'm so relieved the court saw there is no medical basis for this law. It was passed just to target transgender people like me and try to push us out of Florida. This is my home. I've lived here my entire life. This is my son's home. I can't just uproot my family and move across the country. The state has no place interfering in people's private medical decisions, and I'm relieved that I can once again get the health care that I need here in Florida. A mother of one of the children who sued said, this ruling means I won't have to watch my daughter needlessly suffer because I can't get her the care she needs. Seeing Susan's fear about this ban has been one of the hardest experiences we've endured as parents, said the woman. She was identified in court documents only as Jane Doe and her daughter as Susan Doe to protect their privacy. All we've wanted is to take that fear away and help her continue to be the happy, confident child she is now. DeSantis had signed the law last year as he was gearing up for a presidential campaign that was highly based on culture wars. Incidentally, we saw how well that worked for DeSantis. Not very well. And when you see how many people still or don't or no longer invoke the woke theme because anti-woke is dead. Look at the DeSantis campaign. The messenger died. The messenger of discrimination died. And now, with his law being overturned by the state Supreme Court, or the state, or by a federal judge in Florida, we see just how discriminatory these laws signed into law in Florida, how discriminatory they were. DeSantis, when he signed the law last year, said, we never did this through all of human history until 2 weeks ago? Now this is something, DeSantis said as he signed the bill last year. They're having third graders declare pronouns or not doing the pronoun Olympics in Florida. At trial, Florida's attorneys had conceded that the state cannot stop someone from pursuing a transgender identity, but said it can regulate medical care. For minors, the only treatments at issue are puberty-blocking treatments and cross-sex hormones, giving testosterone to someone assigned female at birth, for example. Those who were undergoing treatment when the law was adopted in May 2023 were allowed to continue. Surgery, which is rare for minors, was still blocked. For adults, so it's all just treatment, but not surgery. For adults, treatment was still allowed, but could only be done by a physician instead of an advanced practice registered nurse or other professional. It required the patient to sign a consent form in person while in the same room with the doctor, meaning the treatment couldn't be done on a video call or otherwise online, something not normally required with other medical procedures. Violators could be charged criminally, and medical providers could lose their licenses. Judge Hinkle wrote that Florida had long allowed treatment for gender dysphoria, the feeling that one's gender identity does not match one's sex as registered at birth. But then the political winds changed, Hinkle wrote. He was appointed to the bench by Democratic President Bill Clinton in 1996. That's just another reason why it matters who you vote for president. Because the presidents appoint the judges. And Hinkle, who reversed this trans ban today in Florida, was appointed by Clinton. For 99% of the people, Hinkle wrote, their biological sex and their gender identity are the same, but for a few, they differ. Hinkle said, the state admitted that during the trial, even if some won't believe it and think transgender people are making a choice like whether to read Shakespeare or Grisham. Many people with this view tend to disapprove of all things transgender and so oppose medical care that supports it, he said. He said, even though the state concedes it cannot constitutionally block people from identifying as transgender and presenting themselves as they wish, several legislators made it clear in the comments that this was their goal. At least 25 states have adopted laws restricting or banning gender-affirming medical care for transgender minors, and most of these states face lawsuits. And so this is an indicator that they threw this out in Florida. So you know that in states where there are restrictions, state actions on gender-affirming care for minors, you know that there's a good chance that they could be overturned. So where they're overturned or where they're restricted and where the next place, I mean, Florida, they struck it down in court. But you know, you can guess the states where there are bans, right? Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, all the South. But how about the Midwest? Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, Iowa. How about the Plain States? Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. How about the Southwest? Louisiana, Texas, of course, Texas, Oklahoma, and then Arizona, and then the Northwest, Utah and Idaho. Those are the states where there are restrictions, there are lawsuits. Expect if those suits get a judge like Judge Hinkle, a federal judge, watch those laws to be overturned and the rights of the transgender people protected. The only other one to be struck down so far as unconstitutional is the ban on Arkansas, which the state has appealed to the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Advocates are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. Judges' orders are in place temporarily, blocking enforcement of a ban in Montana and aspects of the ban in Georgia. So this is a pretty thorough AP story by Terry Spencer, and worth talking about, worth reading, because trans people on the front lines. And I was just in Florida, and I was amazed at how, and this is Pride Month, right? I was amazed at how anti-trans, how backward Florida really was, legally, when you see all these things. And yet when I'm there, they're people love their state. I was at the Orlando Fringe, and it's probably one of the blue dots in Florida. But the gay and the trans community, the LGBTQ plus community, alive, thriving, fighting. And this law, which was, this ruling by a federal judge in Tampa, that people in Florida are celebrating, and I celebrate with them. All right, that's our show for today. Hey, thank you for listening. We're here Monday through Friday. I try to come on 2 o'clock Pacific time live to talk about news and stuff. As a, did I mention this? The WSOC. I'm a comic monologist as well as a reporter and commentator. And I'm going to be in Tacoma, Washington for the World Series of Comedy, a satellite, next Wednesday. Not this coming Wednesday, but on the 19th. And if you want to attend the show at the Tacoma Comedy Club on 6th and Proctor, email me at emil@amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how to get a discounted ticket, half-price ticket, to see me live on Wednesday. Now, here's the thing. World Series of Comedy, the WSOC, it's sort of like, it's not exactly like baseball. But there's like a playoff system, right? So I sort of entered as a wild card. So I'm doing my set on a Wednesday. You can come see that. If I make it, I go into a competition Thursday, Friday, and then if I win, I go into the finals on Saturday. That's how it works. It may not work that well for me. I may just see Wednesday and then that's it. But if you'd like to see me live, World Series of Comedy, Tacoma Comedy Club, 9:30. On the 19th, Wednesday the 19th, a week from next Wednesday. Email me. I'll tell you how to see it if you're there live. If you're in Tacoma, extremely discounted price. And if you're not, I'll tell you how to see it live, or how to see it live streamed rather. And so if you're in Hawaii, New York, Philippines, wherever, I'll say, hey, here's how you get the live stream, and it's essentially free. It's a donation. But you may only have to see it one time. I may only be on Wednesday if I don't advance. But that's the World Series of Comedy. All right, what else? Oh, Wednesday, if you're in Manteca, California, you might see me at the Deaf Puppy Comedy Club. I do a little set there. Nice club, new club, Manteca. And that's it. So we're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to close. Oh, no, let me tell you, and wherever you're watching this, are you watching this on YouTube at Emil Amok 1? Are you watching it on Facebook? EmilGuillermo.media or Emil Guillermo? Or maybe you're watching it on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Emil Amok, EMILAMOK. That's where you find it. Hey, listen, we like to close with a little meditation. And I'm thinking, that's probably something that would have helped me if I got a guilty verdict, on this bogus gun charge, if I was Hunter Biden. Sometimes that meditation helps. You accept it, move on. If you see everything is good, it enables you to fight from a better position, fight more strategically, tactically, more effectively. and it preserves your sanity. Meditation. I like the loving kindness meditation that goes like this. It's, you put out the love, it comes back twofold. That's always the case. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. It's got to be easy. It's got to be easy. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal